Welcome to the Forever Better Academy podcast, where you will be given the principles, tools, and techniques to reach the next stage on your journey of self-mastery. Who could you become? I'm your host, Wade Vincent. How many of us wish that we could communicate better with others? Well, I know that I do. I'm sure if you are watching this, likely you do too. So that is what we're going to discuss today on Forever Better Academy podcast, episode 87. My name is Wade Vincent, and really the caliber of your communication is directly proportionate to the level of success you experience in your life. Right now, this is, I guess you would say, effective communication is really the foundation and the vital and most important tool of success and really our structure of society. If you think about how many times that you've had a disagreement with someone where afterwards you wish you could have said something differently, or you know, when you crack a joke or you don't have a joke and then you're like, why didn't I say this, right? It's easy in hindsight to think about better ways to communicate. So today I want to talk to you guys and really discuss very much that, how to be a better communicator, right? So communication is really that fundamental way that we connect to one another as humans, right? Now, we share our experiences through our communication, so it's vital for us to be excellent communicators, because without it, it makes it challenging and near on impossible for us as a species to share and connect and advance together as one, and really share those ideas through stories, right? Now, a fantastic book. On a side note, if you haven't read it yet, I suggest you read Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I think that's how you pronounce it, which really goes on to suggest that the reason that Homo sapiens were the successful hominoid species was because of our ability to tell stories and cooperate on a global scale as a whole. Now, you might argue that we don't do that very well, but in the grand scheme of things, if you really consider the challenges of us as a species collaborating across the entire world in the way we do, it's pretty impressive, right? No other animal operates in the way that we do, and communication is the bedrock for that way that we operate and structure our society today. Now, we all wish to be able to express ourselves, right? Every one of us wants to feel that we're connected and have that, to be heard, to be noticed, to have our express our individuality, right? We all want that. This is why, you know, I make videos like this, and people do other videos, and people write books, and actors create movies. We all look for ways to express ourselves, and it's all through communication that we connect as humans, right? Now, we not only want to be heard, but we want to be understood. Right now, I think it was Dr. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It might have been habit number 2. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Right, and I think this is a really nice place to start as a way to approach being a better communicator. Right, it probably seems counterintuitive, but ultimately, to become a better communicator, first you have to become a better listener. Right? How can you know how to address what someone is saying, or provide value or support or be in service of others, if we're not paying attention to others? Right? So I very much think that an exceptional place to start is with understanding others. And once we do that, and then we seek to be understood, it's a nice little way to position your mind to focus on the other party rather than yourself. Right? Now, how many of us, I know I'm guilty of this, how many of us have been in an argument with a loved one, and you're listening to what they're saying, you're listening to what they're saying, and you're formulating your response. You're waiting to get your foot in or your word in, and reply, and your awesome rebuttal that's going to win the argument, right? When you're communicating like that, you're not really communicating in an effective manner. You're just waiting to force your way in or get your point across, right? And I can attest to it, and I know you guys who've been in the same position probably can too. When you do that, those arguments don't go very well with your loved ones, right? I know that it hasn't for me. So thank you, Dr. Stephen Covey, for that little insight to seek first to understand, then to be understood. So I think what I've learnt along my path and thus far in trying to improve the way that I communicate with others is, and this especially comes from having children as well, right? Everyone has their own unique way of communicating, right? We're all capable of interacting with one another, and a good example of this, even if you don't understand, say you're in a foreign country and you don't understand the language, we find ways to express what we're trying to tell one another, and we kind of can make sense of it, right? They say that most communication is really body language, something like a 80-20 split. 80% is the body language and 20% is the verbal, right? And I believe, that's why we're able to communicate with one another even when we don't understand each other's language. And ultimately, if we weren't able to do that, we would have never been able to translate languages and understand what the different words mean against one another, right? So again, right, everyone has their own unique way of communicating, and this is obviously based upon where you grew up, cultural influences, how your parents specifically talk to you, the people that you're around. Were you around articulate, well-spoken, well-educated family members, extended family members? Did your parents talk lovingly to you? Did you not feel like you were heard as a child? There's so many different factors that play into our foundational years and building our own ability to communicate with one another that are so vastly different and complex all around the world, right? So, and something that I've learned in my attempts to especially communicate something simple as asking my children to clean their bedrooms is it has to be said in different ways for different people, right? So I think this is a really helpful point to get across. Is often the things that we can say the same thing with the same tone, the same inclination to two different people, and each of them will hear different things, right? You can say the same thing with different tone, the exact same word, the exact same order of words and structure of the sentence that you're saying can take on completely different meaning just based upon the tone and how you deliver it, right? So there's so many different ways to say what you're trying to say, right? Now, as I say with my kids, I have two boys, and each one of them has their own way of doing things, their own personality, and very much you can see it right from when they're little. Anyone here who's watching this or listening, who is a parent, knows like your kids just their personality's there. It's just enhancing it and developing it and giving them the tools so that they can become the best version of themselves, right? And it's like my boys literally are like this 50-50 split. Like my oldest boy looks more like his mum and does things more like me, and my youngest boy looks more like me and does things more like his mum. It's interesting the way that they split, and understanding this, I talk to them both very differently, because I know, just because I know how to say something or how I choose to say something it doesn't mean they're going to receive it in the way that they need to hear it. Right? So I know to talk to my oldest, I can be very straightforward and tell him, and he'll get it. And then with my youngest, he might want to understand reasoning behind why did I tell him that, so he can process and understand and make sense of it in his head, because he's looking for the process behind why he needs to do what he needs to do. Right? It's interesting, right? So all of us have very unique and different ways to communicate, and ultimately, one of those key things that I've learned in all of this thus far is, in wanting to be better at communicating, I need to communicate with others in the way that they like to be communicated with. Right? So a very good example right now, if you've ever listened to any of the other episodes of the podcast, you know that I'm in sales. When I'm talking to someone, say a prospect, or someone's engaging with our business and wanting to understand what our offering is, there's different personality types, different personas based on not only the position or their role within the business, but also the kind of person they are. Are they a why person? Are they a how person? Are they a what person? Are they focused on costs? Are they focused on benefits? Are they focused on outcomes? There's many different ways, and really you become attuned to that person when you go to that principle. As I said, seek first to understand, and you'll often find, at least I have in my interactions with people, especially doing business, but this applies across the board. If someone speaks at a fast tone for me, and they don't like to be bombarded with too much information, they like to be concise, cut to the point, cut to the chase, give me the info, give me the dot points, and I can make sense of it, then I speed my communication. I talk in the same manner. I repeat their words. I clarify, this is what you've told me, this is what I've understood, here's what I think will work for you, and then I tell them what I've told them. If I talk to someone who I can see is actively processing what I've told them, I sit back, I allow them to think, I watch, I observe their body language, I see them processing what I've told them, and I don't jump in and disrupt their thought process. I wait till they communicate again. It's becoming more in tune with the kind of people you're speaking to and how that person speaks. And the simple shift of communicating in the way that they like to communicate versus the way you like to communicate will build rapport with them. They will build understanding. They feel a connection with you. A simple and useful trick. Trick is not a good word, but a useful tool that you can use. You can take this away from the episode today, right? As a starting point, a foundation to improving your communication with others. Next time that you speak to somebody, whatever they say to you, repeat it back to them. And not in a way where it sounds like patronizing or that you're mocking them. In a sense of clarification with them. So they understand what they've told you. Repeat it back the way that they've said it to you. Because the way that they're communicating with you is how they like to be communicated with. That's their method. So when they say something in a certain manner, repeat it to them. Now, this does two things. It shows them that you're attentive to them, you're paying attention, you've heard what they've told you. And secondly, scientists have actually done studies on this with looking at people's brain waves. And when you repeat, they feel a sense of connection and a camaraderie with you, and they start to bond with you because you get them, right? Very simple and effective tool that you can use straight away. Instantly, you can take this away, I promise you. And if you see, when you repeat to them, if you generally get the response and they say, that's right, then it's worked effectively, right? You've given them the understanding, you've listened to them, you've shown them that you've heard what they've told you, and they feel aligned and connected with you. And that's the key, right? When you're a communicator, or when you're an effective communicator, people feel heard. People feel a connection. Why? Again, to the beginning of the podcast, we communicate to connect. I'm sure you've had conversations with people where you just don't click, right? You get that feeling like that person, something doesn't align. And it's more often than not just that you guys are communicating, or, I am, in a different manner. And they don't feel like you're people, right? And a good example of this, whenever you're interested in a certain topic, you ever notice that all the people in that tribe, as Seth Godin would put it, use similar language. They talk in a similar way. The tribes come together because people are like-minded, but not just like-minded in the sense of their interest, in the way that they communicate and talk, because it feels there's a connection there. You feel akin to this person. These are your people, right? And it's this is how we find it easy to connect with others, through our communication. So the more we improve upon our ability to communicate with others, the more connections we build with each other, and ultimately, no bad comes from that, right? Think of any great dispute in history, or conflict resolution, or anything that can assist with easing tensions between rival nations. It's the way in which we communicate with one another. And again, back to those moments, as I said, tied into different cultural experiences, different regions, dialect, different languages, different ways to express ourselves. There's been interesting stories around tribal cultures that live in the Amazon, that have different vocabulary altogether. They express themselves in different ways, where there was one that I remember watching and reading about, where they didn't have directions like left and right, and they would talk in southwest, and that's how they understood how to navigate. Right? It is incredible, and it's relevant to the experience you grew up in and where you grew up. Right? So there's so many different ways to communicate. Right? Now, with limited tools of communication, it can often be very frustrating, right? As it presents limitations to one's ability to express ourselves effectively. And ultimately, chances are this is why you're here, because you're seeking to become a better communicator. Now, to speak to the experience with the kids, as I was saying earlier, one thing that I've learned, and not just children, but anybody you're communicating with. Have you ever been in an experience where you say something and somebody doesn't understand it, and then you repeat the exact same thing again, and they don't understand it, and you perhaps think maybe they misheard you, so you say it again in the exact same way, and they don't understand it. It's one of those little things that often is overlooked, because you feel like, well, I've said it clearly. Can you not understand what I'm saying? And sometimes the answer is no, I can't understand what you're saying. I need to hear it in a different way. So another tool that I think you guys can use is very helpful, and has been for me, if what you're saying isn't received well or understood clearly when you first say it, try a different way. See if you can reframe it or rephrase it in a different manner that may be more effective or better received from the person that you're talking with, right? Little things, but all of these things take time. And if you can catch yourself when you're consciously thinking about how to be a better communicator, and you start to pick up on these opportunities to put these little tools and tricks and techniques into play, you'll start to weave them into your daily life and see the effects from utilizing them. Another to talk to, well, I think of it too, the body language, right? One of the things that I've noticed that has been extremely helpful. And this is another simple thing too, right? Whenever you're talking to someone, first and foremost, look them dead in the eyes and respectfully, not in a sense of trying to like pierce their soul, like gaze into like their deepest, darkest corner of their mind. Just pay them the respect and attention, because time is the most precious asset we have. And if someone is giving you their time, the most respectful and appropriate thing to do is give them your attention. Look in their eyes. Don't talk to someone with your phone in your hand and you're half listening. Look in their eyes, right? Speak clearly, slowly, stand in a different manner, right? Like, you see what I'm doing now. The whole time I'm talking with my hands, expressing myself far more through body language, and most of what you're picking up in this video is coming from here, not just here. You're seeing how I'm responding. You're watching how I'm expressing myself and giving you the information that I'm sharing, right? Same thing with posture, right? If you want a message to be heard and understood and delivered, especially, let's say you're watching this because you're getting into public speaking, or you're interested in being on stage and addressing seminars perhaps, or you just want to challenge yourself and get in front of an audience, right? When you stand up straight and shoulders back and project your chest, not in a sense of like peacocking or like this masculine dominant sort of approach. What I mean in the sense of you're opening up, right? Your lungs, when you're standing, right, your voice becomes clearer. It projects further through the room. When you're standing and you're open, you're vulnerable, right? And people see that. When they see you stand in that manner, they see that what you're telling them, it resonates as more truthful. Because and to that effect, don't use these techniques in a sense of trying to manipulate or trick people. Okay, these are effective tools to use for good. Okay, so just as a caveat there. But when let's say you're talking to a room of people, right? If you're talking like this and you're sort of hunched, right? How different does my approach seem? Like, am I believable? Do you trust me? Do you think that something's wrong? Perhaps I'm scared. I don't believe what I'm saying. As opposed to when I'm talking to you and I'm open and my gestures are big and I'm inviting, and you can see that I believe what I'm saying. And there's a calmness and a genuine approach to how I address the room. Very big difference, right? All of these little things can help you easily. And the beauty of becoming a more effective communicator is you don't need to do this and hope in 6 months' time. Like, most certainly in 6 months you'll be a much better communicator if you keep applying these tools and techniques and principles. But these are instant return, like right away. As soon as you utilize these techniques today, tomorrow, you'll see huge impact and a difference with the way that people receive the communication and reciprocate with you, right? Now, I think that probably was the greatest realization I had, to tie back to the point with my kids again. The secret of understanding that people communicate in different ways, and when you communicate with whoever you're talking with in the way that they communicate with, it's the most effective way possible, right? And so I took this on board, and I really made a point to very much spend more time with people. And this is another useful tip. One of the only ways you're going to get better at communicating is by communicating with people, right? I know that almost seems like a silly thing to say, but if you spend more time around different people, expose yourself to lots of different ways of talking, ways of thinking, ways of expressing ourselves, non-verbal communication, artistically, through music, through dance, through food, when you broaden your horizons and you experience other people and other cultures, this most certainly will help you become a better communicator. Even just within your own local community, talk to everyone you see. Walk past someone in the street. Hey, how's it going? I like the hat that you're wearing. You look like you've got somewhere to be. You look like you've got a great smile on your face. And I just wanted to say, that light from your smile, it was infectious, and it made me so overjoyed that I wanted to say thank you for bringing a little joy into my life. Compliment people, right? I find this is a big one. I used to do little mini experiments and tests and just try things. Like I'd just walk up to people in the mall and tell them something I thought that was great about them, and it lights their day up. And that it's what's the saying? Pay it forward. And when you do stuff like that, it resonates, and it's a beautiful sort of energy that carries on, and then they do that to other people too, right? So when and this is ultimately at the end of all this, right? When you learn to communicate effectively, you'll have a greater and a richer life, because you're able to navigate through society far more effectively, right? How much easier is life when you can speak clearly and concisely in your circle, within your industry, with your colleagues, with your boss, with your partner? What about your children, right? Everyone that you can improve your communication with leads to a more fuller and richer life. And people, as I said, the key with all of this is we communicate to connect. And when people feel heard, when they feel a joy with being around you and talking with you and connecting with you, your circle expands, more opportunities, more wonder, and a more richer and fuller life are yours. And all this just from communicating effectively, listening, understanding, and giving people a bit of your time, right? It's a wonderful thing. And I know these things have helped me immensely. And now I was originally a kind of person I used to shy away from people, believe it or not. Like I used to perform on stage, but then when I wasn't on a stage, it was like this persona. And then I didn't like talking to people face to face or looking in their eyes. And the more I got out of my comfort zone and challenged myself and found these techniques I'm sharing with you working well, and seeing people's response to how I was talking with them, it changes you. You become so much more effective, not just in your way of communicating, but just in being a valuable member of society that people want to be around. So that's what I've got for you guys today. I thank you very much for being here. My name is Wade Vincent. You can follow me on all the social channels at I'm Wade Vincent. And I hope that you take some of these tools and apply them today, and let me know, how did they work for you? Have you got some other interesting techniques and tools that have helped you in your effective communication? Put them in the comments, send me a message on social media channels, and I look forward to talking to you again next Friday. All right, guys. See you later.